Let's get into land values and trends. That's what you guys are here for. So here we are. This is the document, and this was broken down into multiple regions. So here in Illinois, I know there's listeners all across the entire United States, but this is going to be specific to Illinois. That's where I live, and I have a lot of curiosity to work through this as well. I've kind of perused through this already, but we have 10 different regions throughout the entire state, and I think what will be interesting to show how much the land varies throughout the entire state. You get down to the southern part of Illinois, land's quite a bit more affordable. Obviously, further north you go to Chicago, more expensive it is. We'll go through here. There's a whole team that put this information together, and it's really comprehensive. So here we are for all of Illinois. This is the land chart from 2001 to 2022. You can see the large jump up. In 2013, land was very strong. You could see a really strong run, followed by a slight decline, and it was pretty flat or steady for quite some time. So let's go down. They have different variations of categories. So excellent would be, they actually state it here. I think it's 133 plus PI, which is a soil rating here in Illinois, and it goes down throughout. So let's look at excellent ground in 2001 was $3,184 across the entire state. And then 2022, that number jumped up to $16,005 an acre. And then the median value was $3,169 and it jumped up to $16,025 in 2002. So let's look at some of these compound annual growth rates. So for excellent land from 2001 to 2022, saw 7.69% climb, which is what we talk about a lot of times, is that 6% appreciation rate. But what it's seen from 2021 to 2022 was a 15% rate. So obviously people seen a lot of appreciation, but overall I think it's safe to bet around that 7%. And they have some different breakdowns. So 2015 to 2022 was 4.53%. And this is for excellent ground. Let's go down to rec ground, because I know there's a lot of rec listeners here. So over the last 20 years or so was 5.4%. And then from 2021 to 2022 saw a 20% overall growth in recreational ground. And then looking at fairground, which would be more poor soils, 13% appreciation from 21 to 22, and over the last 20 years 7%. So really from rec to excellent ground saw anywhere between 5.5% to 7.5% annual appreciation. This is what's considered excellent, 133 to 147. PI 147 is the highest it goes here in Illinois. Good is 117 to 132. Average is 100 to 116. Fair is less than 100, which a lot of that is in the southern part of the state. Here's an ad from Common Ground. They were here on the podcast last week. And let's look at the cash rent. So I know a lot of guys are looking to figure out how to increase the value of their land, increase cash flow, and help pay for the farm. And so this summary shows basically across the board. This is really interesting. Average ground only saw a 4% increase in cash rent with an average of $230, while excellent saw a 14% increase. Good saw an increase of 18%. Recreational ground saw an increase of 14%, and fair saw a 15% appreciation. And so just running through the average cash rent values for excellent, $370, for good, $285, for average, $230, for fair, $180. For people wondering what recreational ground goes for in the state of Illinois, according to this document, throughout the entire state, you can plan to spend anywhere between $5,000 and $7,000 an acre, which is almost in the same range as the fair productivity land, which is $5,500 to $700. And the recreational land is, as you saw, had a really large jump. So, if you would have jumped on a time machine 2 years ago, that number would have been a decent amount lower. But overall, the excellent productivity is seen. So this is like really good soil, $14,500 an acre to $16,500 an acre. With the chart that showed the land trends over time. So for recreational ground, the last time we seen a dip in values was from 2014 to 2015. Rec was going for $4,000 an acre, and it dipped to $3,464 an acre from 2014 to 2015. In 2016, it dropped another $40 an acre and went to $3,424. And then 2017, it started going up, and it continued to run all the way to 2022, where this one shows that it went for $4,755 as the median value across the entire space. So let's look back at 2008. That's something that everyone talks about. It only dipped $220 an acre or so. From 2008 to 2009, it dropped. And then in 2010, it went up. 2011, it went up. 2012, it went down $40 an acre. And then it ran up all the way to $4,000 an acre in 2014. So you can kind of see a general trend where there historically has been slight contractions followed by a steady flow and then obviously a large bump. Just basing this off of data, we just seen a very large run, which means markets should remain steady or see a slight decrease, but not to the fire sale decrease that I think a lot of people romanticize about, where they feel like they're going to be able to get land for way cheaper than what we see here today. I think it would be wise, based off this data, to think that it might go down 5% or 6% or 7%, outside of the anomalies of the really motivated sellers based on hard times. So overall, I think that helps illustrate maybe what people's expectations should really be throughout market cycles. Of there could be a slight pullback, or that it may remain steady, but we just have not seen the 20% meltdown, the 30% meltdown across the entire state. Obviously, different pockets of the region may feel that or see that, but we're working with the data that's in front of us. Here's a map of the state of Illinois that shows what I was referring to. This is a really productive pocket of Illinois for soils, and it continues to get rougher as you get to the southern part of the state. This is where Bill Gates owns a bunch of ground. It's where the really productive ground is. And then the western part of the state, like the northwest region, has some really good soils. It has some more poor soils along the river. And overall, you get to see how the composition of the state of Illinois is in terms of productivity. And obviously, if you're looking at this map, really dark green is going to be more expensive across the board, because I firmly believe recreational ground, even in those areas. Let's say the productivity is between that 88 and 106. And you can kind of see where that might happen in these little areas where the dark green is almost touching the red. Those areas of recreational ground, I think, are going to be higher than if you got down to the same exact soil in the southern part of the state. But the proximity to very high value land is going to help prop up those prices. So this is almost a 120-page document of so much good information, and we just covered the very high level items that is the most applicable for most listeners to maybe transfer it to some of the principles to their state, or maybe you are interested in the state of Illinois. This will give you a really good idea. And so this is pretty interesting. They have farmland price expectations for 2023, and 0% think we're going to see an increase over 10%. 4% think we're going to see an increase between 5 and 10%. 19% think we're going to see an increase 1 to 5%. 38% thinks we're going to see the same. 32% thinks we're going to see a decrease between 1 and 5. Decrease between 5 and 10%, 6% say that's going to happen, and then decrease more than 10%. 1% of folks think that's going to happen. So I think that illustrates that we're going to see more of a steady market. People are more bearish based off this data than bullish, and I think that's wise based off the data that we just went through. And so some of the reasons folks are selling here in 2022, 5% were active farmers, 14% retired as farmers, 57% were estate sales, 9% were institutions, 13% were individual investors, and 2% were other. And the reasons for selling: 60% settle estates, 7% to pay down debt, 7% reinvest in other agricultural enterprises, 13% invest in non-agricultural assets, and 13% used for other personal purposes. So if the economy contracts or things get harder, I think the settled estates will still probably be the highest percentage, but we could see the pay down debts increase drastically if farmland does not become as great in terms of investments, where all these institutional investors are putting money and resources into it. Then I think that we could see the invest in non-agricultural assets increase as well. This is the method of sale. 24% were basically arm's length transactions, so private treaty. 58% were public auction. 5% were sealed bid. And then 13% was a multi-parcel auction. And the last piece of information here I'm going to give you: so the buyers of farmland in 2022 for the state of Illinois, 58% were local farmers, 2% were farmers relocating to a new area, 5% were individuals purchasing farmland for recreation purposes. So when we think of how big the recreational market is, or then maybe that's just my own skewed perception, only 5% of buyers for the entire state of Illinois in 2022 were buying land for recreational purposes. 15% were local investors investing in farmland. 12% were non-local investors who were investing. That was 12%. And then institutions bought 8% of the farmland. So that really breaks down the true data of what's going on in the state of Illinois, some key information that you guys keep in the back of your mind, however you want to apply it. Hope you guys really enjoyed this episode.